"Welcome, my slave," were the first words she said to me, even though she knew I came to greet her family in a polite and respectful way. I was shocked and couldn't believe what I heard. My fiancé's mother smiled and looked at me closely. "Oh, with a face like that, weren't you always a servant?" she said. Then James, the man I loved and trusted, suddenly turned on me. He looked at my face and laughed. "You look like a beggar. I wonder what your parents look like. If they ever came to a rich house like this, they might pass out." His mother kept insulting me, and I couldn't take it anymore. While they weren't paying attention, I quietly sent a message to my dad. He replied right away, "I'm coming." Trying to stay calm, I told them I needed some fresh air, and stepped outside. I couldn't listen to any more of James's cruel words. "Don't run away, Jessica," James said, laughing behind me. I waited outside for my father. About 15 minutes later, he arrived. When Kevin's mother saw him, her face changed. She looked shocked and stiff. "My name is Jessica Taylor. I'm 32 years old. I work in an office at a small company called Pumping Systems. I live a quiet, simple life. I don't wear fancy makeup, just the basics. I usually wear dark clothes like navy or black. I also wear thick glasses. The reason I live this way is because of my dad. He's an actor and has been well known since I was a child. He was very popular when he was younger and often had women around him. He still appears on TV now and then, usually in smaller roles, but people still recognize him. When I was in middle school, life was hard because of who my father was. Some classmates asked for his autograph, and their parents wanted to meet him. I didn't let them, and because of that, people thought I was sneaky. Some kids bullied me because they were jealous. I didn't want to bother my dad or make others think I was showing off. To avoid that, I chose to dress simply and went to a high school where no one knew who I was. Luckily, the name Taylor is very common, so I could live a normal life there. Because of my simple looks, guys didn't pay much attention to me, which helped me enjoy school peacefully. I loved chatting about cartoons with my friends. Those were my happiest moments. I didn't have much experience with love when I met my fiancé, James. He worked for a company that rented out copiers, which we used a lot at my office. We didn't talk much. He'd just show up now and then to check the machines and say hello. Our relationship changed one day when the copier broke. I had been working hard since early morning to prepare documents for an important meeting the next day. But suddenly, the copier stopped working. I panicked. I couldn't finish the work without it. I quickly called James. He came right away and started checking the copier. "Can you fix it?" I asked nervously. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." That smile really caught my attention. The copier couldn't be fixed, but James arranged a replacement. Thanks to him, I finished the documents on time, and the meeting went well. I started to like James more after that. I asked for his phone number and kept in touch often. Later, I told him how I felt, and we began dating. During our relationship, James was always kind and thoughtful. He never got angry, and I believed that even if he knew more about me, he would still treat me well. That's why, just 4 months after we started dating, I asked him to marry me. He said yes right away, and I was so happy. But there was one thing I worried about: my looks. I had worn thick glasses for a long time, even on our dates. I always chose plain clothes. It was a habit I'd had for years and was hard to break. In truth, I look a lot like my dad, with strong facial features. Back in middle school, some girls were jealous of me, and boys judged me just for how I looked. It was painful. Still, I believed that with James, it would be different. For him, I even started thinking about slowly changing my appearance. I kept my feelings to myself, but after we got engaged, I started feeling more and more uneasy. James used to be very kind before the engagement, but lately, he had been acting cold and speaking to me in a rude way. Recently, we went to a bridal fair to choose a wedding venue. James invited me to go with him, so I agreed. The place he took me was very fancy, like a dream. It was a big, luxurious guest house made for weddings with over 200 guests. I was shocked. Since my school days, I haven't had many close friends, and I don't like being the center of attention. I had always hoped for a small, simple wedding. Honestly, I wanted to leave right away. But James looked so happy, I didn't say anything. I just stayed quiet and tried to be patient. After looking around, we sat down at a cafe to rest. James seemed excited. That venue was amazing. I really like grand weddings, he said while sipping his coffee. It looked like he had already made up his mind. In a rush, I shared my honest thoughts. I think a quiet ceremony would be nice too. I don't really like being in the spotlight. I believed that kind James would listen to me, but I was wrong. He looked at me and laughed in a mean way. Well, for someone like you, a flashy wedding might not suit you anyway. And is there even a dress that would go with those thick glasses of yours? His words confused and hurt me. Then he added, weddings are about bringing families together. My family is rich, so we have to do things in a certain way. I didn't know what to say. James, who used to be gentle, was now putting me down. It broke my heart. While I sat there, shocked, James continued, just be quiet and do what I say. You should feel lucky that someone like me wants to marry someone as plain as you. He said this with a serious face. I couldn't speak. I felt frozen. Then he smiled again and said, I'll handle everything. You just need to say yes and follow me, okay? I didn't know how to reply, so I just smiled awkwardly. Maybe getting engaged to James was a mistake. But now, it feels too late to turn back. I've already told my workplace and my parents about our marriage plans. Even so, I still love James. Maybe the kind, caring James the first met will come back someday. Even though James kept saying hurtful things, I still loved him. Every time he spoke harshly, it hurt my heart a little more. But no matter what, I couldn't bring myself to hate him. Even when I thought about ending our engagement, I remembered the kind James from before. Those memories stayed with me, so I continued with the engagement, even though I felt confused. Then one day, something happened that made me even more unsure. That day, James finalized the wedding plans. After looking at several places, he chose the fancy guest house we had visited first. A grand wedding suits me, he said proudly. Though it might be too much for someone like you. He laughed. And again, it hurt my feelings. After that, we went to the guest house to confirm the reservation. On the way, something unexpected happened. We ran into someone. Mom? What are you doing here? James said, surprised. Then he introduced us. Jessica, this is my mom. Mom, this is Jessica Taylor, my fiancé, the one I told you about. His mother smiled at me and said, so you're James's fiancé. You look serious. Where do you work? It must be at a top company. It was the first time I met her, and I was nervous. I replied, I work in an office at Pumping Systems. She looked confused. Pumping Systems? Where's that? James jumped in to explain. It's one of my clients. A small company with about 50 workers. That's probably why you've never heard of it. She frowned. I thought your fiancé would be at a more well-known company. That place can't pay well. Are you planning to depend on James? I felt sorry and embarrassed. I don't earn much, so I apologized quietly. She sighed and said, anyway, I want you to stop relying on James. Our family has a proud history. We can't have someone from an unknown background causing trouble. I nodded, still confused by her words. Then she asked sharply, what about your parents? Do they work at a good company? I hesitated. As I struggled to answer, my eyes happened to fall on something on her purse. It looked very familiar. James noticed I was quiet and spoke up. Mom, calm down. We'll introduce Jessica properly soon. She didn't seem pleased. Well, I'm not exactly looking forward to it, she said, glaring at me. It was clear she didn't like me at all. Marrying into James's family seemed harder than I expected. I sighed quietly. Finally, the day of the family dinner arrived. As I stood in front of James's house, I looked around in awe. Wow, I whispered. The view was beyond anything I had imagined. It made sense now. His mother had said their family came from an old and respected background. I knew James's family was rich, but the truth was even more shocking than I expected. Their house had a huge automatic gate and even an elevator inside. Outside, There were over 10 luxury cars, mostly foreign brands. It looked like collecting expensive cars was his father's hobby. James spoke to me casually. "My dad's not home today, he's working. It's just Mom, so everything will be normal." Even though he smiled, I couldn't relax. After the cruel things his mother said before, I was sure she would say something mean again. Feeling nervous, I followed James to the living room where his mother was waiting. About the other day, I started politely, but before I could say anything more, she said something shocking. "Welcome, my slave." I had come to greet her properly, and those were the first words she said to me. I froze, unable to believe what I had just heard. "What?" I gasped in shock. She stared at me with a smirk and said, "Oh, with a face like that, weren't you born to be a slave?" "I just wanted someone I could use for free." "What do you mean by slave?" I asked, feeling hurt and confused. Then she laughed loudly and said, "James told me it's fine to treat you like one. He just wants someone who will obey him completely."
Poor you.
I looked at James, hoping he would say it was a joke. But instead, he looked at me and laughed. "You look like a beggar. I wonder what your parents look like." He kept laughing. "It's nice to have someone who'll always listen to me. Honestly, if your parents ever came to a house like this, they'd probably faint." James and his mother kept insulting me. Then she looked at me with a cruel smile and asked, "So, what kind of job does your father have? He's not unemployed, is he?" Still laughing, James added, "That's not even a real job. Jessica's parents probably don't work normal jobs at all." They kept making fun of my parents, assuming they were poor and uneducated just by their looks. I was furious. I clenched my teeth, trying not to cry or yell. I couldn't stand being treated this way any longer. Without them noticing, I quietly sent a message to my father. "Please come now." I also shared the location of the house with him. Earlier, James had already hurt me with his words. Today was supposed to be my father's day off, a time for him to relax. Still, when I sent him a message, he replied right away, "I'm on my way." Seeing his message made me feel a little better. Then I turned to James and his mother and said, "I need some fresh air." I couldn't take their cruel words anymore. I went outside and waited quietly for my father to arrive. As I left, James's mother said happily, "That's good. Now, James, let's enjoy our coffee, just the two of us." She seemed pleased to be alone with him. James shouted after me with a laugh, "Jessica, don't run away." His loud voice echoed behind me, but I ignored it and stayed outside. About 15 minutes later, my father arrived, wearing dark sunglasses. "Jessica, what's wrong? Weren't you supposed to be at your fiancé's house today?" he asked, looking confused. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Dad, I can't take it anymore." As soon as I said those words, I started crying. The tears just wouldn't stop. My father looked worried. "What happened, Jessica?" Between sobs, I told him everything, how James had changed since the engagement, how his mother insulted me and my family, and how they kept mocking us without even knowing who we really were. My father listened quietly, but I could see the anger building on his face, even though he stayed calm. Then I told him something specific about James's mother. At that moment, my father gave a small chuckle. He took off his sunglasses and handed them to me. "Let's go back inside," he said. "It's time to make them regret what they did to you." His words gave me strength. My feelings for James were completely gone. Now I just wanted them to see who I really was and make them regret how they treated me. "I've made up my mind too," I said, putting on the sunglasses. "I'll make them regret this." With that, my father and I walked confidently back into James's house. "We've kept you waiting," I said firmly as we entered. James looked confused. "Why the sunglasses all of a sudden?" he asked, clearly thrown off. His mother, who had been smiling before, was now frozen in shock when she saw my father standing next to me. It looked like she had planned to say something cruel again, but seeing my father stopped her in her tracks. I was ready to make her regret everything she said. She must have already realized who my father really was. My father looked at her and spoke calmly. "So, I'm the father of the slave?" His voice was steady, but his eyes were serious. His handsome face looked even more powerful now. What? James's mother gasped. Her face went stiff with shock when she saw him. Why is Kevin here? Is this a joke? She stammered. She looked confused, but also a little excited. Her cheeks turned slightly red, and her eyes sparkled like a young girl's. James stood there frozen, clearly not understanding what was going on. My father didn't answer her question. Instead, he just stared at James and his mother silently. When their eyes met, she looked embarrassed. It was actually a bit funny to watch. I stayed quiet and observed the situation calmly. Then James, trying to collect himself, asked, "Kevin, do you know him, Mom?" It seemed James still didn't realize who my father was. My father was very popular with his mom's generation, but maybe not as well known to younger people. His mother suddenly turned serious and said, "James, don't be rude. This is Kevin Taylor, the famous actor, and my first love."
What?
Really? James said in disbelief. His mother quickly turned back to my father and smiled brightly. "I'm a huge fan of yours, Kevin. Look at this," she said, pulling something from her bag. She showed him a keychain. "This is from your fan club. I've been your fan for many years." She looked thrilled, talking quickly and cheerfully, clearly happy to have her favorite actor standing right in front of her. But my father's face stayed serious. Then, after a pause, he finally spoke. "I understand that you're a fan of mine. But the truth is, you tried to treat my daughter Jessica like a slave, didn't you?" Her happy expression disappeared instantly. Her face went pale, and she started to shake slightly. My father continued in a firm voice, ignoring her reaction. "And calling someone you've never met unemployed is extremely rude." She looked terrified now.
No,
"I didn't know Jessica was your daughter, Kevin. If I had known, I would have welcomed her into the family properly. Right, James?" she said quickly, turning to her son. Yeah," James replied awkwardly, clearly feeling the pressure from his mother. Meanwhile, she kept trying to explain herself to my father, her voice full of panic and excuses. I felt disappointed watching everything happen before my father arrived. She had looked down on both of us before, but now that she saw who my father really was, she changed her attitude completely. Her behavior made me feel sad and disgusted. It was fake and full of contradictions. She looked closely at me and said, "Now that I look again, Jessica does look like you, Kevin. She's quite pretty." I only said those things before because I was jealous. I was scared she might take my son away. If I had known she was your daughter, I would have treated her with more respect. She was clearly trying hard to impress my father. But my father looked annoyed, even though he didn't say much. Watching all of this, I made up my mind. I couldn't let my father carry this burden anymore. I had to speak for myself and end it clearly. So I stood up and said, "I'm breaking off the engagement with James. I don't want to be part of this family."
What?
"Jessica, please forgive me for the things I said," she replied, trying not to cry. "I don't want to lose the chance to be in the same family as Kevin. Please think about it again." But after everything she had said and done, I couldn't trust her. I looked at her calmly, but she still seemed to hope I would change my mind. She smiled at me and said gently, "Jessica, you want to marry James, don't you? From now on, I won't stop you. You don't have to worry. I'll accept everything about you." Now, she was begging for peace, completely changing her tune. Her words were nothing like the insults she threw at me earlier. Watching her flip back and forth like this, I felt disgusted. Quietly, I said, "I refuse." What did you say?" she asked, tilting her head like she didn't hear me. So I said it louder and more clearly. "I absolutely do not want to be part of your family." She was shocked by my firm voice and looked confused. I looked straight at her and said, "You insulted my job, and you insulted my father too. I can't forgive that." I wanted her to understand exactly how I felt. She finally realized there was no point in trying to convince me anymore. She turned to my father instead and spoke kindly. "Kevin, Jessica says that, but you want her daughter to be happy, right? We have money. She can live a good life with us." Some people think money is the answer to everything, but I don't believe that. Maybe my father understood how I felt because he spoke up. Jessica cares more about love than money, he said. And don't worry, our family is doing just fine financially. I earn a good income as an actor, my father said. She didn't know what to say. That made sense. My father is a well-known actor who often appears in dramas. He earns a lot of money, and our family is not struggling. In fact, we're wealthy, so we don't need to marry for money. Maybe realizing this, she went quiet. It seemed like she had no more plans or tricks left. My father broke the silence. You say you're a fan of mine, but I don't like anyone who hurts my daughter. Please don't call yourself a fan anymore. Hearing that, she started to cry under my father's serious stare. I can't live if you hate me, Kevin, she sobbed. Just then, James, who had stayed quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. Don't think you can just say whatever you want, Jessica. If you break off our engagement, you'll regret it. No one else will want a plain girl like you. He laughed cruelly. Hey, James, stop, his mother said, trying to stop him in front of my father. But James didn't listen. I picked someone like you on purpose because you're easy to control. I wanted a woman who would act like a servant. After we got married, I planned to have fun with prettier women anyway. He kept talking, saying awful things no one asked him to say. It was clear James never really loved me. He just wanted someone he could use for his own convenience. As I listened, I realized again that my love for James was completely gone. James kept going on, only thinking about himself. My father clenched his teeth and looked like he might punch James. This was my moment. Dad, wait, I said, stopping him gently. I gave a small smile, still wearing the sunglasses my father had given me. James looked nervous. My calm smile seemed to bother him. What's wrong, James? I asked. Then, without warning, I took off the sunglasses. James stared at me, completely shocked. His reaction made sense. With the sunglasses off, he saw my full face. Normally, I only wear foundation, but this time I had added eye makeup, eyeshadow, mascara, and eyeliner. I had done it quickly after my father arrived, right after crying. It was just a bit of makeup, but it changed my whole look. Is this the real you? James asked, his face turning a little red. He looked like he couldn't stop staring. Yes, it is, I said firmly. Before, I tried to hide my looks because I didn't want to stand out. But I'm done hiding. I had always kept a low profile because of my father's fame, and I didn't want extra attention. But that led to James and his mother looking down on both me and my father. I realized that standing out a little wasn't so bad, especially if it meant protecting my father's honor. That's how I felt. James's face turned red and he said, If you had looked like this from the start, I would have treated you better. Let's fix things. We can cancel the breakup and get back together. And while we're at it, can you ask your dad to introduce me to some beautiful actresses? He had the nerve to ask that, as if nothing had happened. I looked at him firmly and said, The engagement is already over. I don't need you in my life anymore. Oh, and I already canceled the wedding venue reservation. What? James looked shocked and didn't know what to say. But I wasn't finished. And of course, you should be the one to pay the cancellation fees, I added. That's only fair, since you're the one who caused all this. His mother suddenly jumped in, looking panicked. Wait a minute. That's too much for James to handle alone. James still looked stunned and said nothing. That's when my father spoke up with a light smile. Shouldn't James's father be paying instead? He owns all those luxury cars, he can afford it. Then I played my final card. If you're not okay with this, we can go to court, I said. But keep in mind, my father is a famous actor. If this goes public, his fans might react. My father has a large and passionate fan base. In the past, when one critic said bad things about him, people sent angry messages, even dangerous letters. That situation caused a big scene in the media. James's mother seemed to remember that. Her face turned pale, and she quickly tried to convince James, You should just pay all the fees. Do you know what could happen otherwise? Seeing her expression, James finally seemed to understand how serious this was. He dropped to his knees in defeat, full of regret. But I didn't feel anything for him anymore. Let's go home, Dad, I said. I walked away with my father, only glancing briefly at James and his mother, who looked completely lost. And just like that, my engagement with James was officially over. In the end, James had to pay all the cancellation costs. His father, it turns out, is the president of a large company, and my father had once appeared in ads for that company. That connection made everything come full circle. My father told James's father everything that had happened. James's father hadn't known about any of it and became very angry. He immediately questioned James and his wife harshly, then demanded that James pay all the cancellation fees for the wedding. In the end, James had to pay a large amount of money. This also affected his mother. Because she had spent a lot of money and treated us badly, James's father decided to divorce her. She had been using her husband's money for years to support her fan obsession with my father. On top of that, my father revealed a love letter she had once sent him. In the letter, she wrote, "I want to divorce my husband and be with you, Kevin. He's just a source of money." Those words made James's father even angrier. She tried to fight the divorce, but it didn't work. It was finalized with help from a lawyer. I heard that she cried afterwards saying, "This isn't what I wanted." She was also kicked out of my father's fan club. She had caused problems there before, so her removal was fair. After losing everything, her husband, money, and status, it's hard to believe she'll ever find true happiness. I think it's the result of her own actions. 7 months later, something even more shocking happened. James was arrested. He couldn't forget the way I looked without sunglasses that day. He became obsessed and wouldn't leave me alone. Even after quitting his job, he kept showing up outside my house and tried to call me over and over. "Please be engaged to me again. I can't live without you," he begged on the phone, crying. All this just because he had seen me with makeup on once. He was amazed by how different I looked, but I had no interest in someone so shallow. I kindly said no and blocked all contact. But James didn't stop. His behavior got worse, and I started to feel truly scared. I went to the police for help. My father also agreed it was the right thing to do. After a while, things got serious. James broke into our home. The police arrested him immediately. Because of this, James lost his job. Now all he has left is a huge amount of debt. His future looks very difficult. But honestly, that's what happens when someone keeps looking down on others. In the end, it feels like true justice was served. I started working as my father's manager. It's very different from my old office job, and it comes with many challenges. Now I handle my father's schedule, greet people on set, respond to messages, and sometimes help with salary talks. Before, I used to go back and forth between the office and home, mostly sitting in front of a computer. But now my job is all about meeting and talking with people. It's a big change from my old life, but I really enjoy it. Being a manager may look fancy, but that's not the whole story. My main job is to support my father so he can focus on his acting. The work hours are not regular, so I have to be flexible. The best part of this job is being close to my father and helping him every day. I want to make up for the past and ease his worries. This is just the beginning of my new job, and I know there will be more challenges ahead. Still, I stay positive and enjoy working beside my father every day.